I created my own AI product manager by building a retrieval augmented generation agent. And I'm going to show you how I did it in 3 simple steps. We all are seeing AI mentioned everywhere.
If you're not frustrated using AI in your company, then you're nowhere near where you should be.
No one knows how OpenAI is going to make money.
And if there's one phrase to remember from our talk today, it's cloud is the enabler, data is the driver, but AI is the differentiator.
And as product managers, this is our playground to really explore the potential of the AI tools. As product managers, we've all been there, drowning in documents, frameworks, research, notes from events or conferences that we attend to, and a lot of tribal knowledge that we gather along the way. So what if I told you that you can have your own AI copilot to store all that information and interact with it in a very smart way? This way, you can use your very limited working memory every day to make the right decisions rather than trying to recall every single detail from your research and the sources. A RAG agent can become your own AI personal copilot because you're limiting the word association that happens within the vector database to your internal knowledge repository, as opposed to ChatGPT or Claude or another alternative. They're drawing from the whole internet. This way, with the RAG agent, you can reduce hallucinations. So let's jump into the 3 steps. And fair warning, the tools used in each step are not free. AI definitely has a quickly building cost. So I'm going to share that along the way, and I'm also going to share my honest thoughts about using this AI tool at the end. Step number 1, we create a vector database. Before your AI can answer anything, it needs to remember, but not like a human, like a machine. This is where a vector database comes in. Think of it as your AI's long-term memory. Every paragraph, every sentence, every chunk of meaning gets turned into numbers, called embeddings, which represents semantic meaning. So how do we create a vector database? The first thing you need is the data that you're going to feed into your RAG agent. In this case, I am going to be using PDF files stored in Google Drive. I have my own personal, very small PDF file with learnings I gather along the way, notes that I get from events, and then I also have about a 600-page Microsoft dictionary with tons of very helpful technical terminology and user requirement guidelines and other things. But this is the first thing you need, what files you want to feed into your RAG agent. Second thing you need is an account to a website that lets you create a vector database. In this case, I'm using Pinecone, and I believe I'm still in the free tier. The usage is tracked here on the bottom. It still looks pretty good. Now, the third thing you need is a tool where you can split your data into chunks so you can use an embeddings model to transform each chunk into a vector. Then you're going to be able to have all vectors stored in a vector database. So for this, I'm using n8n tool. It's a workflow tool that costs about $24 a month and is allowing you to call the different APIs, the Google Drive API, the Pinecone vector API, and that way you can run that model. You can trigger it manually, or you can set it up to run like once a week so that you can just add your files freely in Google Drive, and this will run on its own. So you can create your database. And if you go back to Pinecone, it'll show you all the vectors that it has created. Now your information is stored in a way that AI can search by meaning, not just keywords. When you ask a question to your RAG agent, the database now will be able to find the most relevant chunks instantly. And in the previous shot, my camera was covering the flow, so hopefully this is a better view now. I used 3 different sources to help me build this flow. One is the product compass. Another one is a YouTube channel called n8n, and the last one, Michelle Torti. There's a lot of debugging that is required to build this. So just giving you a heads up, that's going to be one of the call outs I'm going to be sharing at the end of my honest thoughts. but definitely expect quite a bit of debugging to build the workflow. Now we're ready to move on to step number 2, connecting to a large language model. The vector database we just created is the memory, but alone it cannot form sentences. So that's where the LLM comes in. In RAG, the LLM doesn't just rely on its own training data. It's augmented to focus on the exact information you're providing it to retrieve. And to make that happen, we're gonna leverage again n8n for a workflow that is going to allow you to build your RAG agent. For that, you're gonna start with a webhook that is going to be doing a post request. Then you're gonna select the node of AI agent. Here's the prompt that you have to make sure you indicate how to operate, meaning you are gonna indicate you're a RAG agent. You're gonna provide me the sources when I ask you a question. If you don't find the result, tell me there's no data for that. So you're gonna indicate the specifics here. And you're gonna connect it to, in this case, I'm using OpenAI, GPT-5. And then you're going to connect it to your vector database in the embeddings. And OpenAI is costing me about $20 so far. I spent about $10 just while I was running this for the first time, debugging it, building it. And I had to add another $10 for continued usage. So the more you use these tools, the more it's gonna cost you, right? But the response that this is gonna give you is all the retrieval pieces of information that is getting from your vector database. So you need to add a node for aggregate so it can actually form a consolidated response across all those pieces of information, all those chunks that is retrieving from. And then you're gonna end the flow with a respond to webhook so that you close the loop here. Now that your LLM is creating an answer grounded in the documents that you provided, the next step is to build a UI. Because while you can see the responses when you run your flow here, the ideal is to have a user-friendly interface where you just ask a question and you don't have to trigger and go into this node view to get a response. So let's deep dive into step number 3, creating a UI. Now that you've created your backend, you want to connect that into a user interface. And for that, I am using Lovable. Lovable is costing me about $25 per month. But what's great about this is that it's a very dynamic tool. It's gonna take a little bit of back and forth to get it to look the way you want it, to get it to format the responses the way you want it. But it's a overly simple user interface tool so that you can connect to your RAG agent in a very seamless way. So in this case, I indicated to Lovable to create a landing page where I can click on a button to start a conversation with my AI product manager. So in this case, I named it Gloria's AI product manager, and it's giving me a welcoming message. And we're gonna test it out. We're gonna say, give me a template for user requirements. First thing that came to my mind. And it's gonna take some time. Cue elevator music. Oh no, no available data. It was working like 5 minutes ago. Okay, let's try again. I don't know what's going on, but give me a template to define user requirements. Okay, great. Awesome. Now it's working. I still have credits. I had to check off camera. Great. So below is a concise template that you can use to define user requirements. You can start with the project overview, short description. What are the targets, pain points, architectural and non-functional considerations. And like 5 minutes ago that I was trying this, it gave me a slightly different format on the template. So it's definitely a great tool to play around and just simplify how you access all your documents. Like you can use this instead of having to do 10 clicks, trying to do Control F, trying to find something across 10 documents. This is a great way to consolidate all your information. So that's it. A RAG AI agent may sound like, what is that? But it really comes down to 3 simple steps. You have to create the database, you have to connect it to a large language model, and you have to make it easy to use. So here are my honest thoughts. So even though this is a no-code approach, you still kind of have to know a little bit of programming fundamentals. It took me about 3 weeks to build this. Obviously, I have limited time after work versus if I had all the time in the world. So it took me about 3 weeks because there was a lot of debugging I had to do. And I don't program on a day-to-day basis. So it took me a little bit of time to make sure I was writing the query message in the n8n correctly. I have to make sure I was triggering the right request. So you still kind of have to know pretty good fundamentals. So yeah. My second honest thought is that I don't think AI is replacing engineers or product managers anytime soon. Because when I was using Lovable, it has a lot of like vibe coding. You kind of give it a prompt and then it builds the interface for you. It took a lot of effort, a lot of back and forth, because when something wasn't configured right, and you can click to see the actual configuration, but when something is not configured right, and you ask it to fix it, and it even suggests how it can fix it, I ended up in this like endless loop where it just wasn't fixing it, and then it would try again and it would try again, and it would just never fix it. It kept going back and forth in itself, and then I started try to look online for documentation, try to ask ChatGPT. And each thing was just telling me a whole different version of it. ChatGPT was giving me something that was not working at all. So I just don't think we're there at this time. I think the AI is a tool, but you still need critical thinking. You still need strategic usage of the tool to deal with these hallucinations, to have very strong technical fundamentals, to know what it's actually doing and if it's actually creating more inefficiency or not. Maybe Lovable is okay for like a quick chatbot prototype or other landing page interfaces, but I wouldn't definitely leverage that for a selling product, my own personal opinion at this point. So I definitely do think engineers, product managers are very valuable in the age of AI. My last honest thought is that it can quickly add up the cost of using AI tools. And as I've been mentioning throughout this video, little by little, the more usage, the more it can pile up. And a lot of that is just to get it to work, right? Even more so when you're actually actively using it on an everyday basis. And I think that's where the role of product management really comes into play, which is assessing if the AI tool is the right tool for the use case that you're trying to solve for. I think I'm going to make a separate video to really deep dive into the role of product management in the age of AI. That was the video for today. I will see you next time. Thank you for joining me, and let's keep on driving innovation with intention and real business value.